Few names in the cigar industry carry the weight of Carlito Fuente. As the creative force behind the Fuente brand, he's built a legacy of tradition, innovation, and quality. From his family's early days in Cuba to the ascension of the Fuente brand, Carlito's journey has been nothing short of legendary. So today we're joined by Carlito. We're going to discuss his philosophy behind his success, the stories behind some of his most iconic blends, and his lifelong dedication to the people that make this industry so great. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to my dear friend, Carlito Fuente. So Carlito, you and I go back many, many years. Obviously, a dear friend, and I consider you family, and you're a legend in the cigar world. However, for our viewers out there, give us a little background. Your family's history in Cuba, you growing up in the industry, your coming of age in Tampa, right?
That's correct.
And also the rise of Arturo Fuente cigars in the Dominican Republic.
My family is a story of an American dream. And my grandfather came from Cuba, left Cuba after the Spanish-American War. All the family were cigar makers. His older brothers and sister, my grandfather was the youngest of 9, were on Key West making cigars so they could save some dollars at the end of the month and send it back home to the family that were struggling after the war. They were growing tobacco, but there was no international business and a lot of turmoil in Cuba during those days. And Key West was where it was the promised land to the Cuban island as far as the cigar industry. And well, that's where my family started, Havana to Key West, 1905. And then a couple of years, my grandfather was 15 years of age, which is amazing. And he came in a ferry like many people with nothing, looking for his brothers and sisters. And got in Key West and made cigars at the Gato factory. And just a couple of years later, he was supposed to go back to Cuba, but he got that whiff of that American dream, the hope to be able to offer his children a better life, and today his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So that from Key West, Tampa, 1912, started 1912. Factory burned down, fire, 1924. One of many, many fires in the history of our family. It starts with the letter F, like the name Fuente, and family, and forged, and all those things. And I really believe in that. It's just part of our history. And he started again in the back of his porch with only family members. Many of them were only paid the food that my grandmother was making that day. And well, today, future, you got the Cuban embargo, you have all the history. My father comes into the industry. He was very, very young, worked all his life. And his father was an elderly man, and my father was helping him, and he was, and he started, really building the business, worked around the clock. My father was born in the little wooden house on 13th Street. The number 13 is very, very symbolic to my family.
I always wondered about that. And you
yeah,
just
number 13, I could give you so many stories. We could talk about 13, and you're going to think that's something astronomical or spiritual that it can't be. But there's a reason.
Well, now I know.
There's a reason, and there's many, many reasons, and there's so many things that to me, it still freaks me out.
Yeah.
But my father was born into this home, which in the back of the house was my grandfather's cigar factory. He used to have to make cigars, 50 cigars, when he came from school before he was able to go out and play. I mean, that's the way, and then he did all the chores in the factory and things like that at night. He grew up, I was born when my father was 18 years old. And the day after I was born in the little local clinic in Ybor City, I went to my grandparents' home because I was born 9 months later after their wedding. And they lived with my grandparents because they had to save money and it took years. So I lived in that home at 13th Street. I lived in that home when I was like 2 days old until I was 4 years old, which was part of the cigar factory on 13th Street.
That's great.
And I grew up in it. And my father was my best friend. We were always together. I mean, my father never made a decision, or I never made a decision, or we were like a really good team. I grew next to him, and then we used to make our heart and everything was in handmade cigars. Our cigar makers in Ybor City, many of them were already in their 60s and 70s and maybe 80s and close to 90s. And every year, you know, if there was a cold weather like today where we're living here in Philadelphia, you know, half your workforce doesn't show up. But it came to the real problem began when they wanted my father to pay them under the table or give them a portion of the table because they were on Social Security and they were getting certain benefits. And if they couldn't make more, you know, they couldn't make more than a certain amount.
Yeah.
So they were making a lot more making cigars. And my father talking about my father, his integrity, his honor, his belief in the law and fairness and justice. I mean, it's something that it's not even questionable. And that's the way he thought. And he said, we just can't do it. So we went to cigar makers every day. Was less and less production. We couldn't make enough 858s. And we went to Nicaragua in 1973. And in 1978, when the revolution came in, we lost our factory in Nicaragua. So we still had Tampa, but the writing was on the wall with the Tampa factories, and it was still a good business. So we went to Honduras, another fire. This time was accidental. And then it's when my father sat with me and he said, son, would you have a good business, but what is it you want to do? Because we can't continue. You know, the handmade cigar business is going to be a thing of the past. We need to get new equipment. We need to buy machinery. We got to figure out what we're going to do. And I said, Dad, but handmade cigars, my history, my passion, the tradition, the love for my grandfather, everything I was taught, that is a real cigar. It's something that's done with craft, it's done with passion. And the art of the cigar business, he says, well, son, we're not going to be able to achieve that. If that's what your dream, we have to go someplace else. And that's what my father said. The only country I will move to and live that reminds me so much of my Cuba, and everything's so similar, and the people, and it's happy and everything, and now understand they're giving opportunity for foreign investment, which before was not possible because it was a dictatorship and everything. It's the Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo. But if we're going to stay in the hand business, we have to forget about everything. We have to move there. That was the big difference, because in Nicaragua, he would spend a couple of weeks there, then he would come back, and we would spend a couple of weeks. I would spend a couple of weeks there, I come back, and we had our partners running the factory and everything like that. But he said, no, we're going to do it from scratch. We're going to do it our way. No partners. We're going to build this. And my father started in September the 4th, 1980, was when he made his first cigar. It started, with the building and building up that way before with 7 people, 7 employees. And today, whatever is hard work, I'm not saying this because of growth. I'm saying this because I feel blessed to have the opportunity to provide a better life for so many people. We have about 3,000 people part of our company in the Dominican Republic, and that's direct. And that just, that's my big satisfaction. Not because we've grown, it's because, wow, what a blessing is to be able to feel that. That in life, this could bring so much goodness to the world, bring so many people together. That's what I say over and over. I know that I have to do everything humanly possible to make the best cigar in the world. Because it's this vehicle who has brought me so many friendships around the world. So many people has given me an opportunity to speak about needs, and how about in the cigar industry we have to help others. We give back, whether it's to the veterans, whether it's to children's hospitals, whether it's to our Cigar Family Foundation, whatever it is. And this cigar community, they give me this opportunity to see how it's grown into that. It's a blessing. It's all started because of this, a cigar.
True.
That is more than a cigar.
Agreed. Carlito, Fuente cigars are hands down the most popular cigars in the world. And obviously you're the creative genius behind the brand. What is the Fuente philosophy and your keys to success?
Family values. Who am I? Who was there before me? What did I learn from them? What did they teach me? And everything I do, I owe to those that I have been fortunate enough to be around. Not only my direct family, but I've been blessed that I was the youngest one. I was the only one of my generation and that had any love and interest for the cigar business that actually worked in it. Everyone else of my generation, they went into different businesses because the cigar business was something of the past and it was becoming more and more difficult. It was declining every year. There was difficulties everywhere. And the love for family, what my purpose in life was. And just always trying to, no matter what accomplishment was achieved, knowing that it wasn't good enough. And with time, and with every episode moving forward, if I could say it that way, my father and I ran into obstacles. And those obstacles were faced as a family. And we kept overcoming and learning by them and just continued to make things better because we knew that it was impossible or we would never accept failure. We had to, again, face all odds. And we went through a lot of difficult times, little mini revolutions and hurricanes and fires and everything. And a lot of serious things and a lot of challenges. But the thing about the bond between my father and myself, my father was not a big man in stature, but he was a man that was fearless. And always gave me support. Always said, son, even through the most difficult times, I was born without nothing. I've lost things many times in my life, but our honor and our integrity, we got to do things right. Because I have to look at myself in the morning, and I have to look in the mirror every morning when I shave, and I want to see who we are. And I think that a lot of the family values and a lot of things that I was taught by my father, by my grandfather, and all the people who existed in that generation, they were people of honor. They were people who were proud, who competed fiercely, but they respected each other. It was a different time in the world. Not that it's not that way today, because it's the business from being back in the 70s when everybody was hoping, who's the next one to bite the dust? So to give us more market, more business, one less manufacturer. I remember being with my father and other manufacturers coming in, oh, you've heard about so-and-so? They're closing up this year. Oh, so-and-so, they sold, they're leaving, Tampa. I used to hear that. And I learned as a lesson that today we're living the greatest era of cigars. We're living the greatest era of our world because we have so many different ideas. We have so many young people. We have a new generation. And I know I'm speaking like an old man, old school, but that's the way I see our world. And I'm so proud, so happy, and so grateful to have lived the difficult days and to see now how many young entrepreneurs. One of the things that to me is the best thing that ever happened to our beloved cigar community is all the ladies who are enjoying cigars with their friends and with their companions and their husbands and their boyfriends. And they're going out and they're buying cigars for their husband. But yet, maybe the husband gives her cigars with their chocolates on Valentine's Day. This is what this is all about, my friends. It's about spreading the love. We don't sell cigars. We sell love. This is a world of love. And this is what I learned, and this is what I strive for. And to be able to continue to spread that love, to be able to reach the people, to give love to others through charitable foundations, to helping those in need. Through that cigar, without this, I would have never been able to go out and try to find how many people could believe this way. And that's what the industry has become. It's become a community for the people. And that's what I love so much. And it's my colleagues, we're all one family. We see each other, we hug each other, and we compete, but we're friends and we respect each other. That didn't exist for decades and decades in our industry. Today, in our community, is back. But what's more amazing, their children who are now entering the business or in universities, when I see my son and they go to an event, they all say, hey, son, let's go to dinner. No, I'm going out with so-and-so son. I'm going out, all the boys, all the generation and daughters again together. That other generation who is still not active in the industry. It's a beautiful thing. It's about family.
Tell us about how you created and came up with one of the most iconic cigars in the world, which is the Arturo Fuente Hemingway.
Yeah, everybody asks about Fuente OpusX. OpusX. But the cigar that really took Fuente to another level as far as recognition and being unique and being special is the Hemingway, the Arturo Fuente Hemingway.
Agreed.
No question about it. From being obscure, unknown, an article came out in a magazine called Connoisseur Magazine, which was like a Rob Report, or it was a luxury magazine, lifestyle magazine.
Right.
It wasn't a cigar magazine. And it was, they assigned journalists from the University of Columbia, who was a cigar, supposed, and pipe expert, pipe tobacco, Professor Alan Schwartz. They assigned him for a year, the Rob Report, to go out and do search around the world for the world's best cigar. And he went to every island, he went to Cuba and everywhere. Something unexpected, destiny, whatever. He went to, when we were just starting in the Dominican Republic, and he saw some cigars wrapped in a bundle with ribbon on my father's desk with no name, no cell. He said, "What's that?" I said, "No, that's my son. That's one of his experiments." And I said, "Could I have one?" And he was amazed because he wasn't familiar with the shape, the figurado, because figurados had been lost for decades in the industry. But I just posted something for my grandfather's birthday with all the family. My grandfather was with a big figurado cigar, a black and white, one of the old photos in the back of the house on 13th Street.
I saw it.
And you see there, there's my grandmother on my mother's side, my grandmother, her sister, his brother. That's all family. My other grandfather,
yeah,
they were all cigar makers.
Yep.
But I always was fascinated because it didn't exist, all those figurados and shaped cigars, and even the labels, how I just always been so passionate about the history that had been lost. And I wanted to recreate those shapes again. And my father, went back to old Ybor City, got some of my grandfather's molds, and started training one cigar makers. My father knew how to make that shape. And he had the cigars on his desk. An article comes out a year later and search out for the best cigar. Look out for a cigar called Hemingway, or named Hemingway. Where he got the name from, I don't know. But it says on the article that he asked my father, "What are you going to call the cigar?" And my father said, "I don't know. I want to honor a great man like Churchill, like a Kennedy, or like, any great man, because that's the way cigars are. There's always was about honoring great people. But somebody who's part of our culture or our life, that loves going ocean and fishing, and my father said the words, and it says it there, but today maybe, he says, a man's man. And the writer, Professor Alan Schwartz, says, look out for a cigar named Hemingway. I remember when that magazine came out, I'm sitting in the old factory in Ybor City with my mentor, and it was our sales manager at that time, just started with us, Fred Zanaboni, that we all know and love and respect. the phone never stopped ringing all over the country. They were looking for a cigar named Hemingway. And the first one was the signature. And from there, I just started developing different ones with time, like what goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's just all these things, just what you have to do and keep this perfection doesn't exist. Try to make it better and try to reach people that might want something different, that you want to show your love and your art. So we started making different things, so much so that the first cigar with 2 wrappers in the industry was the Hemingway Between the Lines. And that goes back to family. There's a reason that was born from a memory with my mother, with Ana Luisa Lopez, my mother. She was a cigar maker because she graduated from school, and all my family, my father's family members, all his uncles were general managers of other factories, because that's the way the Tampa community was. They knew everybody, all the factories, and our family, they were all members they worked in other companies, because we were small. And they worked in the biggest companies. I remember my father went to my uncle Raul, who was the general manager of the old Cuesta before the Newmans bought him, and then he ended up with Bearings, with the Corrals, before he retired. And he went to my father's uncle. He went to his uncle, and he says, "I want you to teach my wife. If it's possible to get a job, we just got married, and we need to save money so we can start building a house one day." And he said, "Yeah, she graduated from school and give her a job as secretary." My father says, "No, I want her to learn how to roll cigars, because I want her to help me. I want to make the bunches, she made the cigars." That's what my father, when he was 18 years old, how he was already thinking. So my mom, going forward, after I'm born, I'm about 4 years old. You know, when I was growing up, there were 3 flavors of ice cream in my community: vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. And my mother used to save her money from making cigars and watch movies with me on Friday night. And I love ice cream. And there was always ice cream. And this one Friday night, she brought something, says, "Carlito, I got something you're gonna love, it's very special." I never forget the name. It was vanilla ice cream with fudge swirls. It was called Chocolate Ripple. And that stayed in my mind. I was just blown away. Imagine the first impression. You have the vanilla with the fudge, and it's something that just, I don't know. It's something that reached my inner core. And I'm at the factory in this, and I just remember that moment with my mom and her Chocolate Ripple. And I said, well, I got this great tobacco. And the only reason we make it on one size is because we don't roll too right. We cut in between the veins. It's like a surgeon and everything. There's no veins on the rich Maduro, and that's so it could burn. And it's almost impossible to do the same technique with a bigger cigar. But that was the first cigar with 2 wrappers, and then we started, then charity, about giving back. That also opened my mind, like make special cigars that are one-offs, or there's only a few, so that I could, when I go to events, I could offer for auctions for a good cause. And I never thought that I would be in a time in my life when I come from a family that, I remember the days where the struggle was to be able to meet payroll, and through my father's hard work and my grandfather's dreams and everything, to have a product that you could create things and make special things that you could offer to raise money for an important cause. That's just another world. And that started changing my life many years, decades ago. It just started changing my life. And it created another world in the world of cigars, where now cigars have become art. One thing led to another, but where did the story begin? It started, Anthony, with the Hemingway.
It's a beautiful story. So Carlito, as a cigar industry legend, tell us what it was like to work alongside another legend, your father, the late, great Don Carlos Fuente.
The greatest. Not only with his words, because he was a man of very few words, but with his action, the examples he led. And when he spoke, I said when he smoked, because I never heard him speaking without smoking. I'm seeing him
You
now.
confuse them. You can put them together.
Yeah, but no, when he spoke, it just little things that stick with you, the words, the things he said. It was, how did it feel working by his side? I never thought about it. It never crossed my mind how it felt. It's how it feels now. It's how I come to realize all those, my lifetime by his side since since he was 18 years old, I was born, until he was 81 years old. It was always a huge surprise of the things that he would do and how he could accomplish things. It's hard to explain. How did it feel working by his side? Today is when I realize it. When I'm walking through the factory and something happens, I'm alone. And my mind goes back to 30 years earlier. I see my father when he told me exactly, Carlito, if this ever happened to me, this is what I would do. Carlito, if this ever happened to me, this is what I would do. He never taught me by saying, do this, or I do this, you do it this way. He was in some way, incredibly, his mind, the way he worked, how did I feel being next to a great man like that? I feel I have a great responsibility. And I've said many times before, my dreams are to follow his footsteps. I know it's impossible to fill his shoes.
So I know this might be a tough question.
Oh,
But tell us how you came up with the most iconic cigar in the entire world, the Fuente OpusX.
it goes back to my days. Remember, I talk about family, not only my family, but other families that I had the privilege to have been able to mentor under. Remember I said when I was very young, we were in Nicaragua. We had the factory burned down in 1978. We had it in 73. Well, I used to spend a lot of time in Jalapa with the greatest growers of the time that came from Cuba, that were the great families, because of my father. Because I wanted to learn, and no one of my generation really had any. There was no one out there that really wanted to learn. And I used to sleep in these farms, in El Porvenir, in La Esperanza, with Juan Francisco Bermejo, with Angel Gomez, which was the general manager, the right hand of the Nicaraguan operations for the Angel Oliva family. There was no electricity out there. And I used to tell them, tell me about Cuba. Tell me about Cuba. Well, I want to know what it was like. I was hungry with that. Why? What is all this mystique? And I heard the same shit I heard from my grandfather. Oh, grandson, mi nieto, Carlito. Someday when you go to Cuba, the skies in Cuba, the bluest skies that exist anywhere else in the world. The stars in Cuba are the brightest stars. The steel in Cuba is the strongest steel. The roads in Cuba are the most widest roads. Oh, someday when you're able to see my hometown, it was so beautiful. Well, you know what? I haven't been able to go back to Cuba, but we have Google Map, Google World, Google Map, or Google whatever it is.
Yeah.
I said, let me go one day, because I found out I'm going down the highway, and Cyril says, hey, you check Chateau de la Fuente. Find it on Google. I said, it's impossible. I'm talking about 20 years ago. I said, it's impossible. And he says, check on your phone on Google, okay? He says, no, before you do, check the town we're in, Caribe, where Chateau La Fuente's at. Doesn't exist. But then I go, Chateau La Fuente, it's incredible. So I was curious, I said, man, my dream was to go and see my grandfather's birthplace. I wanted to do that so bad. And it was our 100th anniversary. So I remember I had the big computer and I'm going there and I'm starting Google. I went to his hometown, Guinas. I go, shit, this is like a little village in the Dominican Republic. And then I started realizing that why not? Why not? I wanted to pay tribute to those old masters, everything I learned from those old greatest rapper growers in the world, those families. Why not? I wanted to pay tribute to my grandfather. And to think that it was better there than over here, when it's just a canoe paddle away, no, why not? And it just happened, a situation came where reality hit me like a freight train hitting me in the forehead. When someone visiting our factory, a very influential person from Paris, France, who was the president of the Parisian Retail Association, retailers, he owned Boutique 22 at that time, right off Champs-Élysées. It was a Davidoff store in those days. Habano didn't exist. Anyway, 1988, he's walking to the factory and he says, man, what I'm seeing here, Carlito, this is incredible. The passion, the care. Haven't seen this in the cigar industry. Right, this is 1988. Nicaragua didn't even exist.
Right.
There was no manufacturing, anything. 1988. You guys, what you've done here, I haven't seen in 30 years. I visit Cuba every year. This is amazing, but you're never going to be a great cigar producer. I said, well, it broke my heart. What do you mean? He was so impressed with everything. He said, but you'll never be a great cigar producer. I didn't understand. He says, what do they make next door to your building? I said, Levi's. And what do they make on what's the other neighbor make? I said, Sara Lee, women's underclothing and so forth. He says, you're doing the same thing. Levi's, you can make it in Guatemala, in Hong Kong, in Canada, anywhere in the world. It's Levi's. You're doing the same thing. You're not making a puro. You're not making a real cigar. You're assembling a cigar because you're bringing your wrappers from Connecticut River Valley. You're bringing your wrappers from Mexico, from Ecuador, from Africa. You don't produce a cigar, you assemble cigars because they bring the fabric from all parts of the world. That's what you're doing here. Because the crowning glory of a cigar is the wrapper, the outside leaf, the most difficult to produce, which has a tremendous influence on the overall personality of the cigar. It was not done in the Dominican Republic. I went to my colleagues, asked for support. I went to the Institute of Tobacco, and everybody just said it was impossible, you can't do it, we're going to fail. And it became a big controversy. It became a huge controversy. And it was just something that I felt that was a need. But going forward and just speaking about how my life has evolved in a way, is that what started with the seeds of hope, what brought so much controversy, overnight became the greatest launch in the world of cigars. Overnight, without any marketing company, without any real reason why a small family business, a father and son, and of course my sister, something overnight becomes a phenomenon. A lot of things, there was a lot of reasons at the same time, obviously, but there was a big controversy. And you had Cigar Aficionado, which was a platform to make people aware of that controversy and whatever it was, because they're journalists, they were doing their job. One thing led to another, and it was very, very difficult times, difficult years. But moving fast forward, you don't build a brand that way. A brand that changed the world of cigars, not only in taste, but also in art and packaging. The first brand where you have a father, a son, you have the attire, you have the earth, and you have a product. was introduced to the cigar industry. I think that had an impact, but the only reason, again, that happened wasn't marketing. That was a photo my father and I took, and it had to be fixed because it was late in the afternoon, and it was done with a 35 millimeter camera, and it had to be built and everything because there was no light, but there was a glow in the back of that photo. I didn't know at the time that that's where all the mines are, behind that mountain range, right where the river reaches to the property of our farm. Behind it was a glow. All those little things became mounting up of what Fuente OpusX became. That is part of the image of the label, recreating that, Fuente OpusX. But as I said earlier, moving forward, a lot of things happen, I believe so much. I don't have, how could they happen and why they happen? I just accepted it was destiny. That God took me to a place, gave me a challenge to face something that turned into something that changing the world. Not in cigars, but going to an area that was surrounded by nickel and gold mines. There were no schools, no electricity, no roads, no running water. But going to an area because you have a dream to grow a leaf, because you were told it was the most fertile soil full of minerals, of course, surrounded by mines. The river runs right through it. But what I didn't know, that was an isolated area. It was an area where there were no schools. It was an area that was known as the most violent community of the Dominican Republic, where criminals used to hide because there was no law. But I went there in search of a dream. That's why I say it's destiny, and it's God sent. Because in the beginning, the first year, it was nothing but struggles, but very soon after, children started congregating all over. Children with hand-me-down clothes, broken clothes, half nude, 6, 7 years old, looking for work. And we said, can't give you, it's immoral, it's unethical, even though in the rural areas in the Dominican Republic at that time was acceptable. Today, no, thank God. But it was a normal thing. But then their parents started putting pressure and even striking, wanting to force us to give their children work. And they explained to me that it's part of the culture. And they would tell me, if my children don't eat today, if my children don't work today, they don't eat today. That led to opening my eyes and seeing, maybe just wanting to clean my conscience and wanted to do a cool thing. And through the relationship with our partners in Human Family, which have hearts of gold, that would visit us constantly. Robert Levin, that would be always coming and everything during all this process. We're developing the farm and everything, through our families. So let's do something. And through Cigar Family, which was the first bulletin board of a family that came together, which were cigar lovers. That's all it was, cigar lovers who came together. We come together, we said, let's build a small little classroom. Teach a few children to read and write, basic skills, arithmetic, and a few little reading skills. I really thought it was just a cool thing to do, to give back. It's something that turned into a 26-acre project, recognized by the United Nations as being the model of social and corporate responsibility giving back. It's incredible. We have everything from preschool all the way to high school, to a technical school where we graduate nurses or certified nurses and IT specialists, amphitheaters, dance, martial arts, medical center, baseball field, basketball, volleyball, sports. Now we're building soccer so that they could participate with the girls and the boys, teams. And now, very soon, we're inaugurating the Academy of Arts.
Carlito, one of your famous sayings is, it's not about the cigars.
It's about the people.
You finished my sentence. So could you explain the significance of that saying and what it means to you?
Is again, it goes back to, I think, everything I said earlier. I'll come to realize it's not that I just was too young didn't have the experience to understand or put those words together, those few words. But that's what I saw growing up in that little wooden house, you know, with the wooden cigar factory. It was part of the house. I see my grandmother with her Cuban coffee in the morning when I was still a toddler, going to table, here, have some coffee. Hey, don't work so hard, take a break. Here, have some coffee, don't work so hard. And my father, Mama, I gotta get the orders out. Imagine back then, I mean, I think about the cigars I'm making today, I won't shiver a year from now. You know, and they gotta get the orders out, you know? It was like the bakery, man, the fresh bread in the morning, you know?
Yeah.
And that, you know, it was about the people, but it didn't come to later on in life that I realized, like I said earlier, the connection between cigars and people and how it embraces people's lives. Something that's priceless through a cigar, you see somebody once, you connect, you see them 10 years later, and he's your friend or she is your friend for life.
Agreed.
It's really magical. You know, and I really believe it's not about cigars, it's about the people. And again, I feel it's a great responsibility to keep in the few years or as many as I pray to God that He will give me, I have left, is to try to make the greatest cigars in the world that people are interested in, that will give me a chance to meet someone or see someone, and for the candle not to completely go out.
So you've accomplished obviously so much in your life. What motivates you to continue innovating, moving forward, and basically pursuing perfection?
Well, I'm going to say two words that I probably mentioned earlier: purpose and family. For the future, for my children. Nothing that happened generations before me will have any worth or any meaning unless there's continuity. And I really hope that I'm able to work to my last breath, and I intend to. I tend to be in the factory, I tend to teach, and I tend to coach. But even though that today I'm 70 years old, all the experience that I've through my life to me, it's like when I go to, I don't sleep at night, and to me it's like I keep reliving my past, and it's opening doors for the future. And I know this might sound strange, but I see so many things that just pops up in my dreams of things that I have to create that are really unique. And I just don't stop, man. I'm always looking for something, and there's a twist, because I understand in our world, perfection doesn't exist. And I relate it so much like to the greatest of the greats. Michael Jackson was great, but the greatest of the great in the world of sports is Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan worked very hard for perfection his entire life. If you know his life, perfection didn't exist. He practiced and worked, and no matter how great he was always, and Michael Jordan is one that with half a second left would be across the court and throw it up and win the championship. And then at the same time, he would be under the hoop many times to go like that and just spin out. And he knew that, and he went back and tried to make it better. And that only made him better and better and better. And I use that as an example, and I just don't want to give up, and I know there's so much more I could give. And I'm very spiritual. And I believe that God works through me, and it's the one that gives me the imagination or keeps my youth, because without youth you can't dream. And that's why I keep saying over and over, we need young blood in this industry. And I know that my colleagues went through hell fighting the big boys to try to keep the little guys out. But I'd never forget where I come from. We were the little guy. And we need to have an opportunity for everyone to come into our industry. There's room for everybody. We want new ideas, we want passion, but I can't speak for others. I hope and I expect respect for those that were there before you, as I respect my mentors and all the families that paved the way to give me the opportunity and give me this blessing to be able to live in this beautiful community of cigars and being able to give back to others through cigars.
So, with all that said, what does the future hold for Fuente Cigars?
It's moving forward one step at a time. This is not a model. I believe we don't rush the hands of time. We're going to release something that's a really incredible. It's our Fuente OpusX 25th anniversary, but there's so many other things that are around the horizon. But the 25th anniversary that's coming in our 29th year. So we don't rush the hands of time. But you know what, until it's right, until I don't really believe it's ready for the baby to be delivered, I don't want to say anything. And I just hope that, that God keeps giving me the inspiration and everything, and I continue to receive the embraces, the hugs from so many people around the world who have given me so much, that keeps encouraging me, who's my energy, my inspiration. It's the people. I just hope that magic continues to happen and I could be part of it.
Well, with that, I say we raise a glass.
I say cheers, brother.
Cheers, brother. Listen,
thank you.
Salud.
Salud.
To you and your family, the Fuente family. Much continued success.
Thank you.
We love you. You are our family. And to them and to yourself.
And to everyone's family as well.
Thank you for being with us.
Of course.
Greatly appreciate it, brother.
God bless you.
Thank you for dropping a lot of knowledge on us.
Thank
Salud.
Salud.